Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. I am going to be honest, I'm a little under the weather, so I'll keep the intro short, but this is part one of our two-part horror Halloween spectacular. Even though in this episode I say there's only one episode, I got so excited that we did two. But the one you're about to hear is pretty wild, and I hope you enjoy it. If you have thoughts, remember our hotline, and you can also DM me or email me any thoughts or your top five horror sequels. That's right, this is a horror sequels draft inspired by my friend Ian Carmel's podcast, All Fantasy Everything, where they draft everything or fantasy draft everything from the world of pop culture. So I highly recommend you check out All Fantasy Everything. They had me on to draft hot sauces, but they're not a movie podcast. So they have talked about action movies, I think, once. Maybe they talked about horror movies, but they're not going to do something like this that's just such a kind of a deeper dive into sequels and whatnot. So, two wonderful guests showed up for this. Both this episode and the next one, I had guests that just didn't show up. So, we kind of made it work on the fly. So, I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you so much to the guests for their time. Without further ado, this is our horror sequels draft on VHS. Greetings and salutations. This is VHS Presents the Horror Sequel Draft. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and for this very special episode, I'm joined by two guests. Let's meet them both. First, you know this guest from our Derek Jarman episode, The Crow, Gypsy 83, Moonchild, and more. It's Carmelita Valdez McCoy. Welcome back.
Hi, friend. It's so good to be back.
Excellent. And our next guest, you know from our Horror Food Banquet episode, it's Sarah from Geeks Who Eat and Final Girls Feast. Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, this is our first group draft episode, so I'll break down what that means and how it'll all work. This is a horror sequel draft, meaning any sequel to a horror movie is available. This includes prequels and requels, but once a movie's been selected, then it's off the table. No one else can touch it. It does not take an entire franchise, however, just that title. With the end game being that at the end we'll have 5 picks each, and listeners and internet peeps can vote on who has the 5 that they like the most. There are 5 rounds, with the final round being a lightning round, out of respect for time. Now, this is also a serpentine draft, meaning that if you pick 4th in the first round, you pick 1st in the second round, and we zigzag back and forth like a snake. One of our drafters did not show up, so technically you're picking 3rd instead of 4th, but we'll get to that. There are many ways to prepare for this draft. Obviously, there are some popular sequels, things that you might consider for first rounds. There's also personal picks that maybe you're going to go with your heart. Either way, it's kind of challenging. So to get things in the order and out in the open, let's just talk about preparation. Sarah, what was it like for you preparing your picks?
I went all heart. I never pick anything in any list by what is, objectively the best. I'm always subjective in my picks, and I think that some of my picks will shock people. I've been told that I'm queen of the hot takes when I do my franchise rankings on things, so we'll see how much hate I get by the
Excellent.
masses.
Yes, I love it. Carmelita, how was it for you?
This was a challenge. I realized as I was doing this how many how many films were kind of all the same type of thing
Mm-hmm.
or all the same number in the sequence of sequels. But it was fun though, kind of hashing it out with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to go with my heart, but then also I was thinking a lot about like horror.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much comedy, not too much action. So there's some films that, like, if someone were to cruise my letterbox, would say, "Oh, she ranked this other thing higher. Why wasn't that on there?" And it's probably because whatever movie it was felt more like a comedy. Like I watch it more for comedy than for horror, or it was more action to me. I was trying to go as pure horror as possible.
Awesome. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I want from a sequel, and that was really interesting because I often think of these as individual films. I mean, obviously they're part of a whole thing, but I don't go, I'm going to watch the fourth one of this, so I better start at the first one. Like I've already seen those. I think I'm very individual. So it was interesting to think about like what I really enjoy in a sequel, what they mean to me, like if it's something brand new to the story or if it changes things completely or how it adds and expands. So it was very tricky coming down to just five because I have right now 15 that could all easily be on the list. But we should probably just get right to it. So the order of the draft was decided by a random drawing of names, and that order is going to be Sarah, you're first, and then Carmelita, you're second, and I'm third. So that is the order of the draft. So, Sarah, you have the floor for the first pick of the VHS Horror Sequels draft. What have you chosen?
Okay, well, here's the first hot take because this is I almost guarantee this is nobody's first pick on anything ever.
Okay.
Maybe Sam Zimmerman because I think he's a defender of this one as well. But I picked Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. This had to be in my collection. This is a non-negotiable for me. This is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I love it so much. I also really love Blair Witch lore.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is really to be appreciated by fans of the lore because there are so many like nods throughout the film to like backstory, like Rust in Pars, I'm
Mm-hmm.
finished now is mentioned and all of those things. And I think that it's so underrated. People really need to give it like another shot. It's just I don't understand the hate for it. Like I don't get it. I loved it. It's part of that early aught like horror vibe, which I love. You know, give me all of the early aught stuff like Darkness Falls and Stay Alive, and I'm just, happy as a pig in poop. So yeah, so that had to be my first pick.
Well, you mentioned hot takes, and I think kicking off a draft where every horror sequel is available and taking Book of Shadows is incredibly wild, and I admire it very much. Yeah, my wife also really loves this movie, so she would completely support you and your choice. Carmelita, Book of Shadows fan?
I've never seen it.
Oh
Oh, well,
I
there you
know.
go.
I
Oh,
know. True story.
this is an autumnal watch. Like it's got fall vibes. Like
True.
it's got what's the guy's name? I can never remember his name.
I only saw
The
it once
guy
in
who
the
was in
theater.
Burn Notice.
Oh.
Jeffrey Donovan?
Oh,
Is that his
I
name?
think
Mm,
it's something like that.
yeah.
And it has Erica Learson, who is, the early aughts horror like scream queen. I just watched Wrong Turn 2 with her in it. And I was like,
Just
she was in another early aughts like horror movie that I enjoy. What? And so yeah. So I definitely recommend this one. This one's got vibes.
Yeah, I gotta revisit it. I own it. I saw it once in the theater and was like, okay. I mean, I wanted to see what they're gonna do different because I knew they were breaking away from the found footage, and so I'm due for a rewatch. And Carmelita, now you
It's
have something new to watch this fall.
Yeah. No, and you're selling it. So
There you go. The first
I
pick,
just say go watch it.
first pick of the draft is Blair Witch 2: Book of Shadows, which means it's up to you, Carmelita. What is your first pick from the horror sequels
oh, I'm
draft?
so glad this didn't get picked. Hellraiser 2.
No, damn
Sorry, friend.
it. No.
I'm sorry to do this to you.
Ah, that was my.
I
All right.
Dirk, you're my friend. I
That's
love
okay.
you.
That's fine.
But
Go for it.
I couldn't take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to have this because I love Hellraiser. Hellbound, pardon me.
Yep.
Hellbound Hellraiser 2 from 1988, directed by Tony Randall. It's a direct sequel. It's like we pick up right where stuff left off.
Mm-hmm.
We're just expanding and we get to go into the dominion of the Cenobites. So we get more Cenobites. We get more freaky, weird world stuff. It's
Mhm.
gooey. It's gross. It's sexy. It's all of the things I want from Hellraiser. Just more.
Yeah.
Just more.
Yeah, I agree. I love this movie. I was gonna pick it first because I knew it was gonna go, but I came up last in the names.
Well, I can tell you, it's not on my list.
Yeah,
It,
okay.
it was not even in my honorable mentions. Though there is a Hellraiser sequel that is in my honorable mentions
Okay,
/ backup list in case any of my others get picked.
sure.
But it wasn't number 2.
Yeah, I love this movie. I love Leviathan. I love Julia coming out of the mattress. It was one of those movies that I would show friends because the part where the guy has the razor and it goes across the
Yes.
groin, everyone freaks out. You just knew that part was going to get people. Yeah, I don't even understand when 2 is not a part of the conversation because I love it so much, but you got it. Very happy for you.
Sorry.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Hellbound?
I mean, how perfect of a sequel can the sequel be?
Yeah.
It's like Hellraiser 2 is that. It's just everything you wanted from a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The aesthetic, the way it looks.
Yeah. I love that Tony Randall, the way he directed it, the visuals of it. I love that they give Doug Bradley some no makeup time so you can
Mhm.
see the actor is really cool. I thought it was highly quotable for me as a kid. And Claire Higgins is Julia. I mean, come on.
We're just really like connecting to Wrong Turn all of a sudden because Doug Bradley was in, I think, Wrong Turn. Was it 2
I just
or 3?
I
He's in one of the Wrong Turn movies. I just watched them all. And he was like the best part of whatever one he was in. I forget which one it was.
yeah, he's in another one that I might mention later. Fantastic. So the first round we've got Blair Witch 2, Hellraiser 2, and I'm going to add for the final pick of the first round another 2, and I'm taking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It's a movie that I watch every October. It starts off and it just has serious Halloween vibes. I love that Tobe Hooper turned up the comedy in it. When I was a kid, Dennis Hopper dual wielding chainsaws was just amazing. The whole cavernous theme park situation, I was just like, I love this. There's less screaming than the first film. It's just such my jam. The whole cast is just really great. And when I was thinking about vibes and things that I want out of sequels, it's the same director, but he's going in a different direction with his creation, and I always respect that. I think it's very gutsy to do, no pun intended, because people are like, I like the thing you made, and then you make it different, and then people are like, I'm mad you made it different, but it's your thing. So like, I just think that that's cool when directors do that. So that is the final pick of round 1, but being a serpentine draft means that I have the first pick of the second round, and that pick is gonna be, at the risk of almost drafting a very similar film, I'm taking The Devil's Rejects from 2005.
Oh, no, not.
Okay.
I'm safe.
It's not on my list
Same.
either, but a solid pick.
It is a solid pick.
It's just like I said, I think the reason I had to do it because Tobe Hooper did this with Texas Chainsaw and Texas Chainsaw 2. It's a different vibe, different, same characters carried over, but he's making changes. And I am not a House of a Thousand Corpses guy.
I'm a diehard House of
Yeah.
Thousand Corpses fan. Like, diehard.
I saw it and I was like, I feel like they really messed with him a lot with this. And I'm not a Chris Hardwick guy. And I just was like, I bounced off it for whatever reason. Always
Chris Hardwick gets what he deserves in House of a Thousand Corpses, though. And that's why I'm okay with it. And especially knowing what I know now, I'm like, yeah,
it's good.
cool.
Yeah, and with Devil's Rejects, I mean, he brings it out to the sun. He basically makes like a 70s exploitation road movie where he writes these little vignettes that happen, like the whole chicken section, the whole thing with William Forsythe and Elvis. It's like his best script, I think, and he brings all these people back. Like he got Ken Faree, Bill Moseley, Sid Haig, E.G. Daly, Leslie Easterbrook is amazing as Mother Firefly. The whole speech she delivers when she's tied to the chair, I was just like, blown
Oh yeah.
away in 2005. I brought 5 different people to the theater to see this movie. Like, it just really connected with me in a weird way. I loved that it was like grimy and gross. There was things I wasn't comfortable with, and that was horrific. But it's shot so brightly, and then the twisted sense of humor. It's just, it was on my backup picks until this very second. But you know what? It's in my list now. So that's my first pick for round 2, which means now it goes to Carmelita. What's your pick for round 2?
Okay. I'm gonna go something classic, probably predictable for me. I'm gonna do Halloween 2 from 1981,
Okay.
directed by Rick Rosenthal. I love the Halloween franchise. I almost went with 4,
Mm-hmm.
but
Popular. Uh-oh.
I don't know, something about the vibe of 2. I like the hospital setting. I love that Jamie Lee Curtis is back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some things about it that are wonky, but I don't care. I love, again, a direct sequel. It's like we go right from the events of the first film right into this one. It's kind of Michael Myers at his purest
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how things will progress over the course of the franchise. I just love it. I love the vibes. I love that Halloween is on Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
This makes me happy.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because like a new sequel comes out and people either like it or they dislike it. But I don't think we think about how much joy we've gotten out of when people continue to tell these stories in different ways. And I have many favorites from all this, and some outshine others. And so I definitely have things in the Halloween franchise that I watch more than 2. But I'm gonna go back and watch 2 this year. I think for sure because there's some other ones that I watch every year, and because there's so many movies that I'm like, well, I already did Halloween because I watched this from the franchise or
Right.
whatever, because I'm not gonna watch every franchise, every movie, every like that's a lot.
No.
That's too much.
Spooky season would start much, much earlier.
Yes, excellent pick. Closing out round 2 is Sarah with her second pick. What do you got?
I'm going with another hot take. I'm going with Jason Goes to Hell because I love this movie with my whole heart. I'll be honest, it's the only Friday the 13th movie that I still watch.
Whoa.
I ignore everything else. It's not my favorite franchise, but I really love Jason Goes to Hell. It's the closest we'll ever get to a Freddy versus Jason versus Ash movie.
True.
Yeah.
And Adam Marcus is a dear friend. So plus it's got a little bit of gastro horror in it. Like, so it's got everything that appeals to me. And it's not what every other, Friday the 13th movie is. Like, I don't really love Jason as a character. So having Jason like swap from body to body
Mm-hmm.
and not be hockey mask Jason appeals to me.
Yeah. I mean, wild picks. I love that you are going with your heart. And the thing that I love about Jason Goes to Hell that you're talking about with the body swapping, which is what drove a lot of people crazy, is it's a very gutsy move. And I would love to see this happen with Nightmare on Elm Street if they continued the franchise, because you can still have Robert voice, but it could, I mean, because they're so limited in what they covered as far as everyone's nightmare. Like, we've spent a lot of time in a boiler room, but like we could be anybody, and then you could just hear a creepy laugh and be like, "Oh my gosh, Freddy's in that person." Like there's just, rather than give us whatever they gave us. Yeah, excellent pick with Jason Goes to Hell. But this is a Serpentine draft, meaning you get the first pick in the 3rd round.
Well, I'm going to revisit a franchise that has already been visited, but I'm going to go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, otherwise known as Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Wow.
This is my favorite sequel of the franchise. Now, I like the remake better than I like this movie, but I love this movie so much. It felt like a return to the grittiness
Mm.
of the original, but has a little bit of the campiness from two.
Mhm.
I think two's a little just over the top for me. I don't really love the characters. Slim isn't appealing to me, but I just love the vibe of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Like, you have Ken Faree's in it, you have
Mhm.
Viggo Mortensen, who you never expect him really to play a bad guy. And so to see him like really just eat up that role, both literally and figuratively, is just like, such a joy. I love seeing the little girl. It's just, I don't know, like there's something about that movie that I think is really special and not enough people talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. I did a ranking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, and I don't think I put it very high. So I always love getting to hear someone shine some love on a film that I was like, I felt like it was really dark, and I do love Vigo and Ken. That's the one where there's like a chainsaw in the pond, right?
That it was in the marketing, but yeah,
Yeah.
like the saw, like the gold saw coming
Yeah.
out, like Excalibur.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay, interesting. We got two Texas Chainsaw movies on the list so far. Carmelita, what's your pick for round 3?
So I'm switching it up.
Okay.
I'm giving you something older, something perhaps unexpected. It's not often you get Dracula sequels, but you do in Hammer Horror.
Okay.
Christopher Lee came back as Dracula many times.
True.
I could have picked from any number of those. I'm going to go with my favorite of the sequels, Taste the Blood of Dracula.
Whoa.
I have never seen that one.
have-
Now I got to go watch this.
I haven't either.
Taste the Blood of Dracula from 1970. Okay. I mean, everything about this is a good time. You've got these rich gentlemen of leisure who are looking for new thrills. Why not dabble in the occult, for the
Mhm.
thrills?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this ritual. Oh, look, we've resurrected Dracula.
As one does.
Yeah. Oh.
So you get the spooky gothic vibes of this dark occult ceremony. And it's got the period dress and crypts, and it's just beautiful. And then Dracula's not just killing just anybody. No, Dracula is out for revenge. So it's a revenge film.
Okay.
It's a vampire film. It's Hammer Horror. It's a good time.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Taste the Blood of Dracula.
I feel like somebody should be writing all of these down, like D&D style,
Oh,
like
yeah.
so that we can make a letterbox list.
That's a
'Cause
good
I
idea.
feel like this is something we need.
That's a good idea. I will do that. And I am writing them down also because I knew I was not going to remember everyone's picks by the end of the episode. So
Well, if you DM me a list, I'll throw a letterbox list together.
okay, great.
Because this is a lot of fun, and I feel like I need to watch a lot of these.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought process I was thinking about doing this. We don't do a whole like special episode all the way through October because we cover horror movies kind of year round. But I do like to celebrate, and I do the whole 31 and 31, and I do enjoy spooky time as much as the next person. So this is our special sort of spooky.
You mean you're
episode.
not doing the 100 horror movies in 92 days challenge that I host
I know.
every year?
Let's pause for a second and tell us about that because I don't know about this.
The 100, it's in the 5th year. I started this during COVID. The 100 horror movies in 92 days challenge runs from August 1st through Halloween, and the goal is to watch 100 horror movies you've never seen.
Oh, geez.
I guarantee that there are so many you haven't seen. Now, mind you, you probably don't want to.
Right. I see what's going on here.
But I don't even know how people are doing this, but I have people in my Discord server who are already on like 166. And I'm like, geez, okay. I'm 30 behind where I was last year. And I'm already like, well, I'm reading this year more. So
There you go.
I've seen folks on Twitter participate in this.
Yeah, it started in 2020 during the pandemic, like lockdown period. Pandemic's not over, blah, blah, blah. But it started with me and a friend, and it has just grown every year. And so now it's in its fifth, like this is the fifth time it's been done, and it is bigger than me at this point.
That's awesome. I mean, I do have all 5 sequels of Robert the Doll, so I mean, there's 5 right there. I just need 95 more.
The second one wasn't bad. I just watched the second one
Really?
because the director did Stay Alive, and so
okay.
I like him, and I wanted to see more of his work. He's very hit or miss.
Yeah, I just picked it up because it was like I was already purchasing something, and I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I love having collections, and that's what I cover a lot on our Patreon is like watching all 7 of whatever this was, and so I'm looking forward to dipping into that. All right, well, I'm gonna close out round 3 with perhaps what Carmelita was alluding to earlier. Maybe not, hard to say, but I am quite vocal about this franchise. It's my favorite franchise, and this is probably my second favorite installment after the original, but I couldn't pick that because it's a sequel. It's Phantasm 2.
Nice.
Yeah. I love it. It's from 1988. Director Don Coscarelli comes back. He does the same thing where he takes the characters that pre-exist and builds the world a little bit bigger. He's got more money, but it has all the things I love. We got Reggie Bannister, Angus Scrimm, James LaGrosse is in this one, A. Michael Baldwin. I just love all the stuff with the priests and the spheres and the drilling and the blades, and it's just like I love it. It wasn't even on my list until right at this moment, but I just was like, you know what? As far as sequels go, if we're really going with heart picks and things, there's nothing I love more than the Phantasm franchise, so it's like it's got to be on there. So closing out the third round is Phantasm 2.
I knew you were going to pick something Phantasm.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure which one, though. That I was not positive, but I knew.
Well, 3 is a fun road movie, but like 2, my friend Aaron and I, when we were little, like when Reggie has the 4-barrel shotgun, we were just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And and so that's the deciding factor, really. And then 4 is fun. 5 I get emotional about, even though it wasn't like official. And then Angus had passed, and so it's just like, I don't know. I love and root for anybody that makes the movies. They always return to the same people, and these people were together for decades telling these stories. And I even got the book that Coscarelli did, the fiction, or I can't see it from here, but it's continued stories on Phantasm. That's what a dork I am about the situation, but I love it. And that's my pick for round 3. Kicking off round 4 is me again. And let's see. Okay. Jeez, this is tricky, but I think I have to go with Fright Night 2 from 1988, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. I love the Fright Night movies. They're super Halloween vibes, and the second one, it's got some silliness to it for sure, but I just have so much fun with it. And John Grise, I never know how to say his last name, but I love him in TerrorVision. John Grise is great as the punk rocker. In this, he's the werewolf, which I think is fantastic. Merritt Buttrick is an actor who died too young, so I always got to shout him out. I loved the cover when I was a kid. I found it weird and freaky. I love all the monsters, the humor, like I said. It's just, if we're doing heart picks, sorry to the movie I just kicked off my list, but I gotta go with Fright Night 2. Any feelings on Fright Night 2, anybody?
I haven't seen it, but now I'm literally, as we speak, adding it to my watch list because it just sounds like something I need to see.
It's fun. It's a fun one for sure.
I haven't seen it either.
Ooh, okay. Well, great. I'm glad it's a part of the conversation then, because if it means more people will see any movie, that's a fantastic thing. Carmelita, what is your pick for the 4th round?
Oh my God, I keep shuffling things around, folks. I knew this was going to happen. I thought I had it down.
Yeah.
Thought I had it all ironed out. No, that's not true.
Well, now
There's always shuffling.
Now you're looking at 2 picks. You have 2 picks remaining.
I'm going to go with the sentimental choice. And the villain in this is just, I have to include it for no reason. It's just so iconic. I'm going to go Poltergeist 2.
Okay.
Okay.
The movie is not that great, honestly. It's really not. I mean, objectively speaking. But Reverend Kane, that
Mhm.
character, creepy preacher that's gonna try and lead little Carol Ann over to the other side to be
Mhm.
lost forever. I mean, it's creepy. It's super creepy. I just something about his whole pilgrim look. I don't know. This is one we watched a lot as kids
Yeah.
and just like a whole family type of thing. This was one horror film that my parents would actually sit down and watch because they're not big on horror. So it's a sentimental choice. I recognize it's not the best sequel in the world,
I love
but
it. I love that it's one of your picks out of 5 of all horror sequels
yeah,
because that creepy man.
it's the creepy Reverend Kane,
He's so creepy.
scary religious zealots.
Yep. That works every time for me.
You know.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Okay, Poltergeist 2. Excellent addition to the 4th round. Sarah, what is your 4th round pick?
I again, like I said, this whole list was my whole heart. Like, this was not objectively good movies. I mean, this one I think is actually a really solid movie, but I went with Halloween 2018 because that movie is such a banger. I think that this movie did so much right. Now, the sequels that followed, not so much. I very much look at Halloween 2018 as the end. I was like, okay, well, it's done. We're good. But the scene when the guy and the other gal, they go see Michael Myers at the asylum, like at the sanitarium.
Yeah.
Oh, that scene is just so terrifying when all the other patients there are in their little squares outside and they all just start screaming and the music sting goes up and Michael is just dead, silent, ghostly, staring. Oh, that scene every time gives me goosebumps, like every single time. And the Carpenter score for that movie is like on par with the original. Like everything about that movie is just so damn good. Like I don't care who's going to argue with me on that one because like I will watch that movie any day of the week. Like if someone's like, "Yeah, let's go watch it." I'm like, "Yeah." It's a comfort movie. Like it's so so good.
Excellent. This is continuing your streak of the hottest of takes, and I love that. This is one of the reasons why I also wanted to have this conversation because whenever a sequel comes out, or this is a sequel, even though they called it the same thing as the movie, it's a sequel to, it's divisive. And when I saw this, I was beside myself in rage and and was so mad. But that's exactly why I want to have this conversation about sequels because when something comes out, people go, "I love this," or people go, "I hate this." They're rarely in the middle, and they're rarely listening to somebody from the opposing point of view, so to speak. And so
Yeah.
I love hearing people talk about the things they love because then it makes me reevaluate things. Because also, I am notorious for seeing things perhaps in an emotional state I shouldn't be watching something from. And, my wife will even notice, like right during the credits, where I was like, okay, yep, this is from one of the sequels they're saying doesn't exist. I'm so mad. And then, I'm not even really watching the movie because I'm having this side experience that's not even the intent of the filmmaker. So, excellent pick of adding 2018. Anything to add on 2018's Halloween, Carmelita?
It surprised me. I went in with low expectations and I was actually pretty impressed. I was impressed. I wasn't expecting much and it exceeded my very low expectations. So I had a good time with it.
I mean, after Halloween Resurrection, was it Resurrection? Is that the one with
Yeah.
Tyra Banks and
Buster Rhymes?
Buster Rhymes? Yeah. I feel like after that, like, I don't think I would have had high expectations either.
Well, that's the other thing about like sequels is they get treated like this is the end all be all of something. And it's like in this case, it's just like a new interpretation where they're like, this is our continuation of a story. It's like the comic book movies that are like, this is an alternate universe. This 2018 movie is like an alternate universe version because it's like well, none of the other ones existed, and Jamie Lee Curtis is still alive, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know
Well,
what.
isn't there like with like Halloween specifically, isn't there like technically like 3 timelines or
Yes,
something that
Yes.
like within? So like there's like a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah.
It's like a buffet. Like
Yeah, I love that. And then even the sequels to this, Carmelita and I both know people that like love these things,
They
and
do.
I listen to
man,
them.
I was not a fan of either of the sequels to this, like at all. Like I got, like you said, you got enraged when you saw 2018.
Yeah.
I was angry during Kill and enraged during Ends.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I like it just progressively went downhill for me.
Those
Yeah.
were not for me.
And
No.
I can't even imagine how that would feel to have those 2 sequels follow something that you love. Like,
Exactly. Oh, I was mad.
that's
I was
brutal.
big mad. I was big mad, especially during Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
Nope, I was big mad.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Which brings us to, and we are making record time here, the 5th round, the final round. But before we get to that,
Oh, gosh.
we're going to take a short break. Let me ask you a question. What would Cafe Flesh be without Tantala Ray? What would Slumber Party 2 Massacre be without Atanas Illich? What would Electric Dragon 8000 Volts be without Tadanobu Asano? The answer? They wouldn't be the same, because you need that certain flavor. That's like food without Marshall's hot sauce. For 14 years, chef, teacher, and cookbook author Sarah Marshall has been making delicious and flavorful sauces in small batches by hand. Every bottle of Marshall's hot sauce is prepared by Sarah. You can elevate every meal with the help of an actual chef who's using the freshest produce and the highest quality ingredients. Plus, she now has launched a seasoning line taking actual produce, dehydrating and freeze-drying them, and powdering them to make delicious seasonings without chemicals or binders. There's even more at marshallshotsauce.com. That's Marshall's, HAUTESAUCE, from an actual hot sauce subscription, which gives you guaranteed access to limited edition sauces, to a gourmet pasta with special herb blends rolled right into the noodles. You'll find it all at marshallshotsauce.com. Enter VHS Podcast for 20% off. And now, back to the show. Then we're back from our short break. And we're ready for the 5th and final round of the VHS horror sequel draft. And kicking that off is Sarah with the final pick for yourself.
Oh, this is so much pressure.
Yeah.
I have like a movie here that I really felt like I should have, but like I think I'm gonna switch it up on myself. I'm gonna go with Wrong Turn 2.
What?
This was not this was on my honorable mention list, and this is like now I gotta have it. And I just watched this for the first time. It's Joe Dante's follow-up to Wrong Turn. It's, the backwoods cannibals, and you get a lot of like this is another one of those early perfection movies where they're really looking at like early culture. It's like a survival type, survivor type show. And so they're filming like the show, and then of course, they run into the backwoods hillbilly cannibals, and it's gooey, it's bloody, it's a little bit mean-spirited, but it's so much fun at the same time. Like I did not expect to like have this movie become like a favorite. Like this is right up there for me. Like I'm like, yeah, cannibals. I of course love cannibalism horror, especially schlocky stuff like that. But there's just something really fun about this movie. The kills are really creative and the practicals are really like good. It's just a really like fun movie, and it does dive into the social commentary of like displaced people like in Appalachia, and all of that, like how when the mills go out of business and then they're left to just kind of decide what to do, and there's no help, and then you have people coming in who are thinking they know better, and they're the upper crust, and it's just real fascinating to see that, and then also get the early aughts horror vibes of the time.
Excellent. I just rewatched this too because I was going to possibly put it on my list. When I saw the first one, I may have told this on the podcast. I invited my childhood friend Erin, and my now wife to go see Wrong Turn in theater, and they told me I wasn't allowed to pick movies after that. So um, the first one did not go over well, and then later on, when we rented Wrong Turn 2, my wife and I were both shocked that this was, and it's Joe Lynch that directed this one, not
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Joe
same,
Lynch.
but it's a Joe.
Joe
And-
Dante's Gremlins.
yeah, and this one has Henry Rollins in it, and it's like a reality TV thing. So the way they use cameras in the woods was really creative, and we were just really shocked at how he kind of like, for us, kind of reinvigorated. It also starts off with like an amazing kill where a lady's split completely in half with an axe, and then the two killers just drag the separate halves of the body off for a really long time, where you just realize like, wow, that's great fake prosthetic stuff. Like, cool. Yeah, that's an interesting fifth round pick. I love that jumped in there for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I like it more than the two that I had in my like, first, second choice for number 5, and I just had to like go in there. And I apologize, Joe Lynch, if you're listening to this. I did not mean to get your name wrong. I apologize.
It's the excitement of the draft.
Yeah, it's a Joe too.
Exactly.
So sometimes when you get going and it's just like, I got the first name, it just leads into whatever you're thinking. Perfect. Okay, that's your final pick for the 5th round. Carmelita, what's your pick for round 5? It's the last pick you have.
Oh,
No
I could
pressure.
tear my hair out because oh my God. It's not like this is set in stone for the rest of my life if someone were to ask me. I
Right.
can just go with how I feel right now.
Yeah.
Follow your heart.
I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to switch it up. This is another this might make some people's lists. I'm going to go with the first true horror sequel,
Oh.
arguably, Bride of Frankenstein,
Oh, that's such a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
directed by James Whale, 1935. And I'm going to go with this one because although, at this point, Bride of Frankenstein is not scary, I think, to anybody.
Sure.
So much of the spooky aesthetic you can trace back to Bride of Frankenstein. I am currently trying to cultivate the Bride of Frankenstein hair because I'm going gray. So
Just go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm letting that go. It's so iconic. I think even if someone has never seen this film, they know it. And I love that all the way back in 1935, you get a solid horror sequel. Frankenstein's monster has survived and he just wants a mate. He just wants to be loved. I think too, I decided to go with this one because this is one of those, as a kid, you can kind of find who's going to be spooky the rest of their life through a movie like this.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the monster to live.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. All the pitchfork wielding villagers, I'm not rooting for those guys.
No.
I'm
I
rooting
think
for the monster.
Mhm.
That's the beauty of like Frankenstein in general, especially, and Bride of Frankenstein, is that like humanity's the monster.
Yes,
Like the monster is never the monster. It's humanity is the monster.
absolutely.
I think that even now, like in current, political climates, like we can see that kind of appreciation, the monstrous, the whoever is quote unquote monstrous is usually not the true monster.
Quite often, most of the time. So yeah, I just feel like this is one of my early memories of relating to the monster.
Mm-hmm. And you got to have a movie for the Rockabilly kids to grab onto. I mean,
Yes.
like what would they have if they didn't have the Bride of Frankenstein? That's an excellent pick. Very classy. I also thought about this one, but it didn't. I had too many.
There's too many.
There's too many, basically. And I'm not saying stop. Everyone keep cranking them out. I love these horror sequels, which means it's time for my final pick. It's the last pick of the 5th round. It's incredibly difficult because I have one that's been on my list from the first time I thought about this because it's very close to my heart, but I've also talked about it a ton.
So what?
Because there's
Go with your heart. Follow your heart.
yeah, I think I have to because we can do honorable mentions. and I've said it so many times, so anyone that's a longtime listener to the podcast, you already know what I'm about to say, because it's a number 2. It's from 1988, directed by Mick Garris, and it's Critters 2: The Main Course. I love this movie. It's like the first time I ever realized that horror movies could be fun. I do obviously love really scary, intense things, but ever since I was a kid, there's just something about like Halloween vibes in horror where it's just like it's fun, you get creatures. The When they formed the giant ball and rolled over a body and it was just bones left out, I was like, this is all I want. This is everything I need. The whole thing with the Easter bunny and the eggs, I just love that. The swearing critters, I mean, that felt forbidden. The part where there's shape shifting from a Playboy magazine and suddenly the alien has breasts, I was just like, you can do this? It just seemed magical to me. So I have to include it in the list. I could have picked it first, but I also knew no one was going to pick it, so I could save it for last. So the final pick of the horror sequels is Critter 2: The Main Course. There you have it. How did everyone's 5 shake out? Was it what you intended from the beginning? Looking back, are you shocked?
No, well, I mean, I shuffled some things around. Not to twist the knife and rub salt into the wound. But
Damn it.
once I had Hellraiser 2, I didn't really care what happened after that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Sorry. I love you, friend.
All right.
But no, it turned out differently than I went into this thinking.
My original 5th choice was going to be either Return of the Killer Tomatoes or Hellraiser 3.
Nice.
But then I was like, oh, Wrong Turn 2 though is like near and dear right now. So like I think that's going to be it.
Okay, let's talk about what didn't make it on your list. Does anyone want to shout out some a couple
Oh,
of
I had 4 others that
Okay.
I really wanted like that, but I just couldn't do it. And that was Return of the Living Dead 3,
Nice.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022,
Yep.
Alien Covenant,
Oh, interesting.
and Dracula's Daughter.
Nice. Yeah.
Those were
Dracula's
my
Daughter.
like other like those were my backups in case anyone was also crazy and picked Jason Goes to Hell or Texas Chainsaw 3.
when you said
I was
Texas
like,
Chainsaw, knowing that you were like gonna really go for it, I was like, if they pick 2022, this is gonna be like I could just imagine people just ripping up their phones and just just throwing them on the ground
You know
because
what? I really loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Me
2022. I don't think it does some things wrong. I don't think like there were things that I didn't think worked. Like the whole Sally thing didn't quite work for me all the way, but I'm not mad at it. Like
yeah.
I still think it's a very solid movie, and it's one of those it's another one of those like I don't understand the hate. Like, have you
Yeah.
watched the rest of the franchise?
Yeah.
Because
Well, and I didn't even care. I didn't like the bus sequence that like people loved. I liked all the other stuff. I was just like, I really like this, and I want them to revisit other movies in this way, where it's like I'm not even quite sure the story or whatever, but like who cares? Because if John Wick can just like something bad happens to something he loves, and then he goes and gets his weapon, and then he kills everyone. It's the same thing that's happening in this
Sure.
movie. John Wick
I've
just doesn't wear
always
his
said that
dog's face.
Leatherface is kind of like the Frankenstein of slashers. Like he's sympathetic. Like I don't think that Leatherface is as villainous as say Jason or Freddy, because he's very much just like protecting his family, and he's not doing it right. I mean, I'm not saying he's completely justified,
Sure.
but he's not like completely unjustified either. He's trying to feed his family. They, much like, in Wrong Turn, how it's like conversation of like, Appalachia and that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a franchise is kind of the same way, like disenfranchised, they're not quite backwoods, but like they're middle clothes, they're like things close, like economic hardship, doing what they got to do. And I just think there's something inherently sympathetic about Leatherface, and he's always kind of presented as not quite wanting to do it, but then he does because it's family duty.
Yeah, well, and also in those movies, you have to go mess with them. They're not,
Exactly.
going out to
Mm.
mess with you. It's like you go to the house and they're like, all right, well, we're going to eat you. Like, it's just
Except in Texas Chainsaw Massacre too,
right.
because they
They go to the
do
radio
chase
station.
those
Yeah.
two kids in the beginning.
I love it.
But
Yeah.
and maybe that's why I don't love Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
Could
I don't
be.
hate it, but it's not. It's definitely at the bottom of the franchise list for me.
Oh, that's so wild.
I know I'm weird. I'm weird.
I love it.
I recognize it.
Carmelita, what did you have that didn't make the list?
Oh, I mean, there's a few things because I had like this whole methodology of like 3 different tiers of picks.
Mhm.
In case, I mean, I did what I do. I totally
Yeah.
nerded out, but I'll just give you a couple. I almost put Phantasm 3 in there.
Nice.
It bounced in and out, and I didn't want a
Mhm.
chance taking one of your Phantasm movies. Friday the 13th Part 2. I prefer The Bag to
Wow.
The Hockey Mask
Okay.
personally.
hmm
And like Shrine to Mama. I mean, that's just great. I almost had a different Frankenstein.
Okay.
Peter Cushing
Mm.
playing Dr. Frankenstein for Hammer Horror. I could have gone The Revenge of Frankenstein, or I could have gone Frankenstein Created Woman.
Yeah.
I kept going back and forth between those two. I almost put Halloween 4. Okay, here's an outlier. This one, not a great movie, but Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh.
That,
Came very close.
that's crazy.
I just love Candyman.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So
Yeah.
I was tempted. Scream 2 almost made it. Dawn of the Dead almost made it.
Same.
The Conjuring 2 almost made it.
Oh,
That's a solid
interesting.
movie. That's a
I
really
came
solid
very
movie.
close. I came very close. But
Okay.
and there were others I thought about that were in the requel prequel territory that I was like, I'm gonna try and stick to classic sequels
hmm
because I get confused. I get confused with the requel, prequel, legacy. I start to get my head starts to spin.
Yeah.
So I kept it simple, but
Same. I had Slumber Party Massacre 2 was actually one of my picks that got bumped off as we went through the episode. I really enjoy that movie from 87. I had Ghoulies 2, but I obviously have to go with Critters 2, so I couldn't have Ghoulies.
course.
And Critters, it's too many small creatures. Evil Dead 2 is an obvious one. Exorcist 3, I feel like, is an obvious one. I had those just as backups, but I also thought, like, if we all 4 were here, I was like, there's a good chance that these are going to get picked. Doctor Sleep from 2019, I thought
I thought of that one too.
it's just
That's a good one.
it's really incredible how that exists. Rec 3 is not my favorite of the Rec series, but that's where it pivots from being, found footage to a narrative normal device in a film. And I think they're so creative how Paco does that I was like, oh, that's got some great kills too. And it would have almost been my pick instead of Critters 2 because I don't have any foreign horror films on here, and I love movies from like Korea and Japan and Spain, and I watch them all the time, but not a lot of them get sequels is the problem. So
Yeah.
I couldn't really pick that. Cold Prey 2 almost made my list, but, we only had 5 picks. There's only so much you could do, unfortunately. So I'll go through our picks here. Sarah's picks. You have Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, Jason Goes to Hell, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Leatherface, Halloween 2018, and Wrong Turn 2. Carmelita, you have Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, Halloween 2, Taste the Blood of Dracula, Poltergeist 2, and Bride of Frankenstein. Very nice. And I have Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Devil's Rejects, Phantasm 2, Fright Night 2, and Critters 2. They're all
Two.
they're all twos. Oh man. Okay, but we want to hear your
It's
picks.
always the best, almost always.
I know the twos. So, if you want to share your picks, you can call or text 503-395-8858. And you can also just vote for your best 5 or your favorite grouping that we did on our Instagram or our Twitter. Sarah, where can people find you?
I am on Twitter at Spooky Sarah Says. I'm actually everywhere as Spooky Sarah Says. If there's a social media app, I'm probably there. Also, Final Girls Feast, but we are currently on hiatus as my co-host is dealing with some family stuff. And yeah, just Spooky Sarah Says is probably the easiest way to find me.
Okay, perfect. Carmelita, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd and kind of on Blue Sky. Same handle for everything. Carmelita says.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining me for the horror sequel drafts.
Oh, thank you, friend. This
Thank
was so
you.
much fun.
As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS, where when it comes to celebrating rad films and even radder friends, we're not done yet.
VHS.